Emergency medical services worldwide are bestowed special rights by the societies in which they operate. Rights including exemptions from road rules and the autonomous use of dangerous drugs and medical procedures, amongst others. These rights come with an implicit expectation that the emergency worker will use the privileges in a judicious and appropriate manner, one befitting the social, moral, ethical, and legal framework of each individual society. It is incumbent upon each emergency service and its employees to constantly assess and balance their actions and decisions against the ethical and legal fabric of the community in which they operate. In the following video, Maxine's actions will be presented from her ethical and legal perspective, and then the ethical and legal standpoint of her superior officer, and finally suggestions will be made as to possible punitive proceedings against Maxine and systematic changes aimed at circumventing similar occurrences in future.
My decision to flee the accident was made based on the ethical theory of consequentialism. Consequentialist ethics emphasize the consequences of an action as opposed to the action itself, and enforce that an action is morally and ethically right if the consequence produces the best overall outcome. More specifically, utilitarianism defines the best overall outcome as one that is judged from an impersonal standpoint and produces the greatest net balance of aggregate human happiness or satisfaction. Provided that this happiness or satisfaction is attained, utilitarianism is indifferent to the mechanism as to how it is achieved. If we apply this to my case, my decision-making process can be justified by considering the overall aggregate happiness or satisfaction derived from whose life may have been lost. The loss of the mother was a very unfortunate event. However, I do believe that between the death of a middle-aged woman and the death of a 9-month-old baby, it can be said that the majority of people faced with this decision would support the survival of the baby. Most of us would argue that a baby who has just begun its life deserves the chance to survive and have life experiences, as opposed to a middle-aged woman who has already had the opportunity to live a substantial life. Therefore, the utilitarian theory suggests that the survival of the baby provides the maximum aggregate happiness, not only for the child itself, but for the child's family, myself, and the majority of the community, which in turn justifies my decision to flee the accident. Furthermore, bioethics also supports the decision-making process I have taken, particularly the principle of justice. Distributive justice involves the allocation of healthcare resources based not only on patient needs, but also societal needs. This involves considering what society regards as an appropriate distribution between benefits and burdens. As discussed earlier, I believe that society as a whole would generally agree that the limited pool of healthcare resources available should be directed to a 9-month-old baby over a middle-aged woman. Therefore, distributive justice would argue that my decision to aim the medical capabilities and resources I possess towards the baby was an ethical decision.
At the QAS, we understand that our paramedics have many options when it comes to choosing an ethical framework to base their decisions on. In this unfortunate situation, it appears that Maxine has chosen consequentialist ethics, placing the very real consequences of the unresponsive child above the potential consequences of her erratic driving and subsequent collision. This is, however, insufficient to justify her actions, as the creation of the Ambulance Services Act and the Transport Operation Regulation exemptions are the result of consequentialist ethics, and they are the limit to which society will accept this justification. Other ethical expectations the QAS has of its paramedics include social responsibility and integrity, neither of which we feel have been demonstrated by Maxine at this time. For society to function, occasionally the deontological ethical framework must be adhered to, and we here at the QAS believe that Stipulation 306 and 287 of the Transport Operation Act, which state that emergency vehicles must be driven with reasonable care, and all parties involved in motor vehicle accidents must stop at two such situations. It is the opinion of the QAS that Maxine is in breach of at least two of the three applicable principles of biomedical ethics. Autonomy is not applicable as there is no patient as yet. Maxine has demonstrated a general propensity towards beneficence in that she has completed her required training to return to work and is described by her colleagues as the kind of paramedic they should aspire to be. In regard to non-maleficence, Maxine could argue that the concept of doing no harm could include arriving at the unresponsive child without undue delay. However, this must be balanced with the need to protect the lives of those people with whom Maxine interacts while in transit to the child. In this regard, we find her justification lacking. In the formal principle of justice attributed to Aristotle, Equals must be treated equally. Therefore, in a singular society, the concept that all people are equal dictates that every person has the same right to live and survive each day without the requirement of sacrificing one's own life to protect another. Maxine's actions in leaving the scene of the accident directly contravene this principle.
Based on the information from this scenario, it can be assumed that Maxine was suffering from a condition known as red mist. According to Dawn and Brown, red mist is a lay term for the narrowing of attention through heightened psychological and physiological arousal in the pursuit of a goal. Sufferers can place themselves and other road users in danger. Emergency service workers are educated to the existence and causes of red mist driving as part of their defensive driver training. Paramedics are given legal exemption to exceed the speed limit and proceed through intersections against red lights in accordance with the Transport Operations Regulations 2009. These exemptions come with an inherent responsibility not to endanger the lives of the other road users. Maxine's first priority should have been the safety of herself, her partner, and According to the Queensland Ambulance Service Act 1991, Section 18A, the Chief Executive may discipline a service officer if he or she has inefficiently or carelessly performed his or her duty. Using similar international cases as a guide to punishment, we would recommend Maxine be criminally charged with either dangerous driving or driving without due care and failing to stop at the scene of an accident. Professionally, we recommend that she be reprimanded, incurs a significant financial penalty, along with being required to resit her driver education certification.
The ethical and legal construct of each society is determined by balancing the freedom of the individual with the need to maintain the safety and harmony of the many. In this scenario, Maxine has broken the law of her society, and no matter what her moral and ethical justification, she will be subject to some form of punitive punishment. However, any punishment meted out by the authorities will no doubt pale in comparison to the remorse and regret Maxine bestows upon herself in the harsh reality of hindsight.